Hello, baseliners. Hi, this is Samrat here. I bring to you the Baseline Show in India every Saturday at 6 p.m. So let's get started with our baseline song. So, Shalendra, we just take our head to the tune, getting you accustomed to it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Welcome, guys. So today we have Chandar Gupta with us. He's at 20. He's experienced 22 years in the technology space, and he's probably one of the most difficult to guest to most difficult to get guests on the baseline show. We've been trying to coordinate time since about 2 months now. So thank you, Shalendra, for making time for today's baseline show. Before we get started, I would like to invite people to follow us on Twitter. We are also on baseline-protocol.org. That's our home. That's where Baseline lives. Come to Baseline Protocol website and you will find a Get Involved section. You'll find all our handles there, our YouTube, our Slack. Get involved in the Slack community. You'll get answers to all your questions you may have about baselining. Also, go to GitHub. Uh, Everything is freely available, even the standard is freely available for you to download and read. And do not forget to subscribe to our channel. We keep making announcements via our channel, which is Baseline Protocol on YouTube. Do like this video if you like our conversation. With that, I start off today's discussion. Data is an off-balance sheet asset. This is something which we've been discussing over many weeks. Today is our 25th episode, so this is also our silver jubilee episode for me, baseline show in India. Of course, John Walpert has been running this show forever in the US timing, and thank you so much, Mark. You've been present on most of my episodes, of course. So thank you. You're like the veteran of the baseline show in India. Uh, Thanks. So with that, we move on to today's discussion. So Shalinder, why don't you tell us a little more about your experience? And Shalinder is the global head of data and analytics, BI, and big data at Apollo Tires. Apollo Tires is a listed entity in India, and it's worth about what, $2.5 billion.
That's right.
Awesome. Perfect. So Shalinder, off to you. Let's hear from you what you do and what your experiences have been with data.
So thanks, first of all, for inviting me here. So as you mentioned, around 22 years in the industry, and I got some good opportunities to work in some of the three, interesting domains: logistics, media, and now manufacturing. So, and out of three, if you ask, media was really interesting to work with. And as you mentioned, about the data being, an asset, an off balance sheet asset that very aptly fits there. All you have is the data and those assets. So that had been my experience primarily in all these 22 years.
Okay, and I think your most interesting experience was also when we met when you were working in the media industry.
Exactly.
So kudos to that. Has it been what, like 4 or 5 years? More than that.
Must be 7 or 8 years now. Yeah, so must be 7, 8 years.
Awesome, awesome. That was an interesting time. Um, so how do we for somebody, so what we do generally, Shailendra, in on the show is that we start talking about one industry, and the audience is varied. It's from various industries, etc. But the whole idea is to make people aware about one particular industry, so that they know about dynamics. How it goes in that particular industry. You can pick up logistics, or you can pick up media and pick up manufacturing. The kind of work that you're currently doing. I also know that you were part of a large project, which was migration of your core ERP, right? Is that right?
Yeah, so
Right.
that's still
So
going on. Yeah. Yeah.
so you can pick up that and take into the show, take into the format of the show. You can talk about the industry and then various data silos and also multi-party workflows. That's what we try to find opportunities for baselining in different industries.
Yeah, so thanks for giving the choice. In fact, manufacturing and media both are very, very interesting industries. They have their own challenges. And when it comes to data silos, The only difference is that 11 years I worked in media, so probably I can speak more about that. 3 years been in manufacturing, so I'm still discovering some of the nuts and bolts, and every day is a new discovery. But last 11 years were very interesting when it comes to media. And the interesting thing about media is nowadays it touches our life. Gone are those days of the cable media. You used to watch TV, and as an Indian audience, Sundays used to be special with the family. But otherwise, now with the OTT platforms, with the Netflix and the Hotstars, the things have changed a lot. Has gone personal.
Yeah.
And when it comes to data silos, media industry definitely has a lot of data silos. I would say what I have seen, right from the production to the licensing of the content, and then to the broadcasting of the content. And these were some of the challenges we were trying to solve in my last company, what we call as a big data problem. It
Hmm.
was a massive data coming from Nielsen, coming from social media. With all these platforms now, all advertising of the media happens through these platforms. And what they want to do, they want to tie the advertisement of their media with the original media. So if I want to promote a particular movie or a series, uh, I create a lot of promotions, and then the promoters have the rights to create a content as they want to promote. So if
Mm-hmm.
Lionsgate has produced a particular media and Star wants to promote, or Discovery or Amazon Prime want to promote, they can pick a part of that media and do the promotions, depending on, of course, the rights and the deals.
Right.
At the end of the day, what they want to know that whether those promotions have gone well, who has watched, who are my audience, who will really watch the media. And the challenge is there is no primary ID in all these things. So time is just based on the name, and the name changes depending on who's promoting and who's consuming the media. So I remember this was one of the projects that we took, where
Okay.
they wanted us to give us an ROI on the promotions. So again, the big data and the ML came in handy. We had to apply some fuzzy logic to join the names of the movies or the series, and it becomes even more complicated in the series because they have the episodes.
Hmm.
So episodes one, two, three, and then using that fuzzy logic, we could build up to around 90% of the accuracy in finding the asset which was promoted on Amazon Prime or Netflix or Hulu. So they are definitely silos of data, I would say, in the media industry.
Awesome. Awesome. And yeah, this does sound like a very complex problem to have. And when you said multiple data sources, so can you define for the audience what those data sources look like?
Yeah, sure. So media has, as I mentioned, has gone digital, completely digital. Right after the production, when it's transferred to the content providers, it's no more on the
Hmm.
tapes now. So it's all transferred over the high-speed lines.
Yeah.
So right from the content providers, they license this media to some intermediary channel, or if they want to showcase on their own. Now, when they transfer the media has no asset ID, universal asset ID. You sell a movie to me, born identity, and then I'm selling it as a born identity, but there is no ID on that. I
Okay.
promote that media on Amazon Prime or Netflix or anywhere else. Again, there is no ID on that. So everything is working based on the name. And every time it exchanges or there's a handshake, I create my own ID. Even if in the licensing agreement you have created your ID, I'm not sure if those IDs are. I have not seen being used in the consumption systems. So there
I
was a
see.
consortium called as IDER, Enterprise Digital ID Registry. So this consortium was now, being promoted by some 30 to 40 media companies, that let's build a unique ID for those assets, going down to the levels of the ads and even every sub content. So we talk about every promo of the media, or many a times the media is dubbed or the media is edited depending on the rating of that particular country.
Okay.
So that was going well, but again, universally, it's not or not had been a problem solver for the media. And
Okay.
when it comes to ads, a very old consortium is there called as Ad ID, which was also incorporated by Nielsen and some of the systems. But again, it's not universally accepted or universally used in the systems. So every
I
time
see.
the media changes the hands, and media is one thing which is completely digital. It's not physical entity. So you can anytime cut it. You can edit it. You can have so many versions of it. I mean, today if you watch one particular movie on Amazon, there are at least 10 dubbed versions on the Indian languages, and
Right.
this goes worldwide. So there are so many edited versions of that media, and managing all those versions, I can manage in my own system. But when I have to report all those things back to my content provider,
Mm-hmm.
it is very challenging for the media companies to report all those royalties. And so many applications have been built to correctly report the royalty, but the whole logic and understanding of royalty is extremely complex, where there are dedicated teams of the legal systems within the companies to calculate those rights. And I mean, it's very challenging for the systems to interpret and give the right results for the media royalties.
I see. I see. Now that reminds me of a product called Tree Trunk, which is being built for NFT royalties. And what if, Mark? What if we could convert media into NFTs and give out to those brands
Oh, it's already
to
happening.
run?
It is already happening. I mean, you have quite a few of the large media companies are starting to set up their own content studios, as well as putting together, to include teams where they're going to be doing NFT drops at various times. And a lot of this is co-branded with, either a current TV show or a or a online persona or personality or stuff. Um, Fox Entertainment has just announced, this past fall, that they're committing $100 million investment into their entire NFT ecosystem, and so um, it's not just something that there's going to be a fad. I mean, it's something that where people are actually going to um, really embrace a lot of this new paradigm, because the one thing that it does is, if you're an artist, you can issue your own NFTs, and then you can actually promote your own work. You're not relying upon a an advertising agency or a recording studio to generate your reach, and of course
Right.
take a large chunk of the revenue that your work brings in. And so this really is issuing an entirely new mode of distribution for artists. So, and you're going to have marketplaces that are going to emerge that are going to help promote all of this. Whether it could be kind of like a collective or a consortium of similar artists,
Right.
promoting their particular work there and stuff, and they get to keep the profits. And it's the one thing about NFTs is the artist can realize revenue by every time that a piece of art changes hands. So every time it's subsequently sold, the artist still gets a royalty for that. So, and
Absolutely.
blockchain technology is the only one that can provide that, because by tokenizing an asset, you give it singularity and you give it permanence, and so that you are the only one that actually holds that token, and it's the only one in existence, and it can be exchanged for value with whatever the marketplace would dictate.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And thank you so much, Shailendra, for that primer. And now let's move on to the next section, which is where we talk to you about baselining. So, of course, as baselining goes, it's a secure protocol for achieving constant state of synchronization between systems. We have been discussing over a period of these 6 months that we've done baseline shows in India, or the 1.5 years. approximately 2 years now, which has been put behind baselining. So I think we've discussed tons of use cases for synchronizing systems between, especially for supporting multi-party workflows. So what's your take on baselining, and do you think it has value?
So very interesting, concept. This whole baselining thing is, I've been thinking about it, and if I have to speak, probably I can speak a ton of the use cases about it, how it can solve the problems. In fact, in the media itself, you asked about the multi-party system.
Yeah.
This is one of the best use cases that you can solve with baseline, or even before the multi-party system. If you see, whenever a company starts, or whenever a new business starts, or even with existing businesses, one of the biggest challenges is managing the master data.
Hmm.
Anytime you start a new software, a new database, a new ERP, the first thing what you do is fill up your master data. I want to know my customers, my suppliers, my employees, and my assets.
Right.
This whole master data, if I look, around the globe, the master data has really come as a common master data system that we can build, or whatever you are selling or I'm buying, half of the world is doing the same thing. If I'm your vendor, I'm vendor to probably 100 other companies. If I'm your consumer, I'm consumer to probably 100 other companies. I mean, whenever I go to a bank and register myself, I have to fill in all the details. There are still physical forms that I have to fill in. Thankfully, today we have this Aadhaar system. I can just put my number and I get an OTP and verify my details. I don't have to fill up, all the details many a times.
Yeah.
But similarly, if you talk about the master data globally, if you can put the similar system in baseline and you share that master data with everybody, people don't have to again and again fill up that master data. Uh, I'm not an expert on this, but Ariba was one of the systems which was built on this premise, where they said we will build an exchange of the vendors, which was later on procured by SAP took over
SAP.
Ariba, SAP
Yeah.
Ariba. Similarly, if you talk about getting the credit details of a customer, you can today go and talk to DNB. So Dun
Hmm.
and Bradstreet will authenticate those details to you.
Yeah.
And these are very proprietary systems, and a lot of risk factors are there in these. But if I put my master data,
Hmm.
and of course subject to the condition of the privacy, it's not that it is open. Mark was giving an example of a token. Similarly, I can have a tokenization, and then if I authorize a token, the way it happens in crypto, then the person is allowed to use my master data. Otherwise, it's safe and secure. So this is one
Yeah.
of the, I mean, I would say this is the base of baseline. Okay, you put your master data in the baseline, and this is the first thing that you can start up with any kind of material. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of organizations are doing it today. If you have to do business in Europe, then you
Yeah.
need to have an HSN code or EN number as authorized by Europe, European
Right.
Commission, right?
Right.
So those requirements of master data, they are not new, but then these systems can really help us in managing that entire thing globally, not just which is country specific or system specific or organization specific, but the HSN codes, the material master or the people master, those systems can be done in this kind of thing, baseline and securely.
That's a Yeah, no, that's oh, absolutely. I think security and privacy is something which is, and that's why we're using zero knowledge proofs. But I think you brought up a very important point. The base of baseline, which is how do we take care of master data, and can baselining be used in keeping master data in sync? I think that's a very powerful ability to have for systems, especially for multi-party workflows, and then there is added complexity when you go across currencies, when you go across borders, across time zones, etc. How do you make sure your suppliers are legit, their compliances comply to yours, etc. So I think you hit it on the head, Shailendra, with that statement. So, and tell us a little more about, from, it can be from your media experience, or it can be more from your manufacturing experience. But where do you see data silos, or where do you see such multi-party workflows, which are sharing more data than really required for updating status? Do you see opportunities like that?
Samrat, it's everywhere, I would say. So what
Okay.
happens? Single system cannot be used to run the whole company. So of course there is a whole gamut of softwares which are used to run
Hmm.
the company. Even if you have the best of the ERP, it does not fulfill all your requirements. And when it comes to manufacturing, it's very complex process. You need the manufacturing systems. You need SCADA systems. Then you need the logistic systems, and even the CRM and all. And then sometimes you have to integrate these systems. The
Right.
challenge that I have seen is whenever you integrate a system, these systems always want to copy the data. They don't want to use something which is centralized. They always try to create their own copy of the data. So a system like a baseline can come as a very good integration hub. In fact, recently we were working on, in fact, we are working on building a global data lake for our complete silos of data which exist either in the factories or in the supply chain and everywhere. The moment we talk about integrating all these systems or building a data lake, first thing that you look for is a good tool to integrate.
Hmm.
Okay, and then every tool again you'll have to customize all those APIs and the sources of the data, the destination of the data. But if, or in baseline, in fact, some of the big companies have already joined the hands. EY, Accenture, and now even SAP has come, which is one of the
Right.
biggest, consumer of the data. If these companies come to an agreement that these are our protocols or these are the API standard things that we use, that whole process of integration can become extremely easy and we can eliminate the data silos. This is
Yeah.
how I see baseline. So
Yeah.
when you talk about the multi-party systems, you talk about the supply chain. The, I mean, again, I would say the base of these softwares or these companies, it can be transferred to a centralized
Hmm.
system where you can just use the APIs and consume it from the hub. What you can keep, or of course you will keep, is the transactions of the systems. So the customers are common, the suppliers are common, but your transactions are your transactions. They are unique. So in your system, you focus on the building transaction and consuming the transactions rather than focusing on cleaning the metadata. Or
Right.
you have to worry about if the GST is there, if in Europe the VAT is there, or if my taxation is properly done or not. Is it the recent address of the customer? Who is the current contact of the customer?
Right.
If one salesperson leaves, now this company has to inform everybody they are working with, hey, this is my new salesperson, this is my new employee. But then if you update that master data somewhere,
Yeah.
everybody can just go and consume it and you focus on the transaction part of that. You can
Excellent.
eliminate
Excellent.
really copying of the data. You can eliminate the data silos to a great, great extent.
Excellent. No, I think John Walpert has covered this multiple times when he says that we should be creating a global phone book, and that's what he
Exactly.
calls. And this is like a global phone book, and that should be the first thing we should be chasing within baseline. There are tons on, and by the way, this is for the community. There are tons of grants which were dispersed in the previous year, and now we are again going around with a tin cup, collecting more money from the sponsors, and we will be having more grants coming up for the present year as well. So please look forward to our announcements on the grants, and do participate in the community projects, and you could build up the global phone book that has not been built yet. Awesome. And since Shalinder, you touched upon SAP being coming on, that was like a very very high moment for all of us in EA community projects and the baseline community project, and the baseline community, that somebody like SAP, of course, they've been contributing since almost the beginning, but now they officially come as sponsors, and one of our uh, contributing companies, one of our community members, which is Unibright, they've been they came up with base ledger few days back. I think it was announced in November, if I'm not wrong. Then they
September.
had come out. Was it
September, yeah.
September base ledger? But when was the SAP connector launched?
Now that, yes, that was much more recently. Yes.
Yeah. No, I think that was also September. So I just opened up the article and it says 23rd September. Maybe they announced.
Okay.
Um, okay, so time flies in baseline,
It
in
really
baseline world. Really, I'm so sorry, guys. But yeah, definitely. So they are doing a fantastic job on two fronts. One, they launched Base Ledger, which is capable of storing zero knowledge proofs, and hence it is the best way to do baselining right now. And the second thing which they did was, which is launching that connector with SAP. So, they're giving you a way also to start baselining as soon as possible. See, Shalinder, the biggest benefit which I see personally, sitting and talking to multiple leaders in multiple, like yourself, in multiple industries, the biggest benefit that I see is, a David and Goliath game, a big company talking to a small company, which was not the case earlier. If you had to, if you're the Coca-Cola of the world, or let's say the Apollo tires of the world, and you have 10,000 vendors, you have to have certain, uh, your vendors have to be at a certain level of IT maturity only to start transacting with your systems, right? Whereas with baseline in this paradigm, anybody even managing their inventory on a Google sheet could start transacting with you. So that's the kind of power which baselining is bringing in. And with this concircle and UBT, which is the con UBC connector kind of services, that's like baselining as a service.
Right.
So 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 I think these are fantastic developments which are happening. Yeah, Shalendra, back to you. You were talking about data silos.
Yes, we gave some very good examples, the integration and all. And one thing that you very rightly mentioned about is the ledger that you spoke about. Okay, a lot of people, I believe, are still considering this whole baseline thing as just another currency kind of thing, which is
Yeah.
not so popular in the minds, especially the governments. But then, if I look at the baseline, I think it brings some of the best technologies for us to use. One thing that people should understand, what we are bringing here is very nice word. What I read on your one of the use cases, immutable transactions. So that is the most powerful thing that you guys or this whole baseline thing is bringing. We are still living in this world where people can go and did we lose Samrat?
Right.
Okay. So I
I'm
mean,
back.
we are still working on those databases where somebody who has absolute power on a database can go and change whatever you want. No logs will be maintained. We can override. People have seen the cases, and then came the compliances like the SOX compliance, and then governments want that your system should be SOX compliant.
Right.
But then, if you have something like an immutable transaction, there is no need to worry about all those things. There is no need to worry about the audits failing. The auditors can, confidently say, yes, oh, you have a immutable transaction database. I know, so it's not something that I'm worried about missing transaction in your bookkeeping. So it's not just the master data. It's not just the integration. But even if you don't go for a centralized, database of baseline, even if
Yeah.
you pick up the tech stack of baseline and then implement it in your own company, the whole concept of immutable transaction is wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about the frauds happening inside the banks.
Right.
Uh, And again, I keep saying this is a very good exchange. I mean, at one point of time, there were hundreds of bank, and every bank wanted to talk to the other bank for all the transactions. Then there
Right.
came a payment gateway system, and the payment gateway said, "Guys, I'm a trusted party, so you talk to me, I'll talk to the bank, and then I'll connect
Hmm.
you. So let me be a channel in a tunnel." The same
Right.
thing is here. So you talk about whether multi-party handshake. This baseline system is like a very sign of the security. You're stamping it. I guarantee you that whatever I'm telling you is authentic.
Awesome, awesome. No, I think you touched upon multiple things, and this is fantastic, Sharindar. One thing which I see, when we come out with a baseline standard, definitely software companies will be able to comply, will be able to adapt that standard and make their software capable of baselining. And of course, yes, there'll be auditors who will come and audit, the capability to baseline, and of course, once baseline is set, data integrity or any. So I've been a tech risk auditor in my past career, and when I used to do audits, a lot of times there are audits required for making sure that all the data has been produced for the purpose of the audit. While the management makes all the efforts to give out all the data, there are times when things get missed out, either at by will or by mistake. So a lot of times, even before statutory audits, auditors like myself who understood systems had to be called in just to make sure all the data which is produced for the auditors is complete. So now with standards like baselining, I think it's just going that need is going to get eliminated. So that saves cost and time in statutory audits as well. So yeah, that's also one of the use cases, and we have a speaker lined up very soon, who's going to talk about GDPR and statutory audits and how baselining can help in that particular area as well. So and one interesting thing you touched upon also is, Sharinder, how banks would want to use it. So of course there is on one side is the global phone book. I think they'll also want access to that, but on the other side is risk data. That's the biggest use case which I see. I mean, people change their entity names, they create meshes of, they create a mesh of entities just to make sure that their financial stability information is hidden by from governments, from banks. So and then what if these entities are across borders? So to to be able to share risk data across borders is something which I see as a very powerful use case for banking.
Yeah, I'm not an expert again on banking, but how I see that data across the border is even shared today. When you travel, and if you have ever traveled and you hold a passport, your data has been shared across the border. Governments share the data, right?
Yeah.
Before you go to the customs, they know who you are and where all you have traveled and everything. So
Right.
it's already across the border. If you have used your Visa or Mastercard, they know everything about you. They know your transaction history. Now, the data, as per the government guidelines, can stay within a country. That's okay,
Hmm.
but that doesn't mean that your unique ID score or your credit score is not reflecting. In fact, when I moved to states, at one point of time, the first few months, I was feeling very frustrated that, guys, back in country I have a credit score. You want again me, to build a credit score, and then you want me to buy a credit
Exactly.
card rather than you issuing
Exactly.
me a credit card.
Yeah.
So, but then we don't know you. You
Yeah.
might be, having a very good credit score, and you may have the loans and everything, but for
Yeah.
us, you are a new entity. You are a new master data.
Right.
So imagine if I have that thing coming through a baseline. That guy, he is a global citizen or she is a global citizen, and
Yeah.
this is what his past history had been, and he has assets back home. So it makes the life much easy for us as a global citizen and not just a local citizen. So for
Absolutely.
banks, this is a gold mine for banks.
Right. So I was actually discussing with somebody at Amex, who's in the credit cards division, exactly the same use case. That you could use baselining to baseline people's, just to risk checks. Don't share actual data. Even if you want to do data residency, you want to protect people's privacy. Don't share data. Just do baselining. Just check risk parameters. Start with a basic credit card, but at least don't say that this guy is new. I mean, he was born what 35 years ago, right? At least. So and the second thing, which is, now banks have started sharing data at least within their entities. So let's say a Citibank in India could share data with Citibank in the US. That's something which is happening. When I traveled, I was able to to migrate or sort of port my credit risk information. So Shalinder, let's also talk about a very interesting segment on my show, which I do, which is not called anything actually, but I do call it $1 million question. Although the gentleman that you see on the screen they are worth billions. Mark is aware of the section.
What?
Yeah, Mark, you're aware of the section. Something which I'm just going to show. Okay, $1 million question. There you go.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So Shanindar, my question to you is, um, oh, which screen is sharing?
I saw that. I don't know if it's going global, but yeah.
Yeah, it is going global. So I'll just show slideshow here. So, can you see the slideshow,
Yeah.
or can you see my presenter screen?
I do see a slideshow, and
Okay, because
the
because this software is slightly weird because it does not show me. I have two monitors. Which one is it actually projecting? Anyway, so the question to you is, on one side you see Mr. Ambani, who is the epitome of making revenue, and he wants to make money on the ideas that he's working on today, whereas you see Mr. Elon Musk on the other side, the epitome of innovation, where you see this guy is obviously he ended up making a lot of money, but he did that with a vision. So he wanted to innovate first and then eventually make money. So where do you see the use cases that we discussed? Do you see any of these being part on Mr. Money side, which is making money today, saving costs, etc., making doing operationally good, whereas baselining giving rise to new business models on Elon Musk side? So what do you feel?
so both. It's not. See, people will adopt it only when there is an ROI and there is money involved. If it's
Yeah.
just a technology, so people may not just adopt anything. When I look at on the finance side, management always have one question, guys: where can I save the money?
Yeah.
And how can we, do the same thing or run a project? You're telling me this will be done in a year. Can you do this in 6 months? Now, as I told you, my first 6 months goes in just setting up my master data, cleaning the data. So, from a businessman's perspective, and I
Hmm.
can't even disclose you the numbers at how much we spend on our master data. It's a huge amount managing the master data.
Yeah.
And for larger companies, it could be even a significant cost in managing the master data. So, from a business perspective, you don't have to do that job. Okay, if you have everything cooked up in a repository and all you have to do is consume, then it's a tremendous money saving for me, and not just money saving, but even the time to market can be reduced. So,
Hmm.
something if you want to launch, okay, I want to launch a new service and build a new customer base. So if I have to launch an online grocery system at GeoMart, or
Yeah.
and I already have everything in somewhere global repository, I don't have to worry about building the master data of my customers. My customers can just enter one number, whether it's a phone number or an email or whether it's a Aadhaar card, and I authorize that guys go and get my data, and there you have it. You don't have to fill all those things. I
Hmm.
mean, today only, so we requested something from the bank, and then they still have somehow our old address, though we see it is updated, but somewhere in their record it is old address. And I don't know, it never reached to us after a week. So if you have your master data correct, you don't have to
Yeah.
worry about this customer issues and complaints. On the
Yeah.
other hand, if you talk about Mr. Musk, then he anyway is a big believer of this whole crypto thing. At one point of time, you could buy a
Okay.
Tesla
Yes.
paying the cryptocurrency. So he's anyway the epitome of innovation. And I mean, of course, he can think of better use cases than me. But
Yeah.
you never know tomorrow if SpaceX is using this thing for something, or whether he's using
Right.
human supply chain using this at the back end. Uh,
Right.
so when it's a big
No,
use case for supply chain, if I
yeah.
talk about
Oh,
traceability is a
absolutely.
huge issue, and the parts recall often becomes a nightmare. That who supplied, who manufactured, who did that,
Right.
and by using immutable transactions, you can very accurately find out the whole chain of the supply.
Excellent, excellent. No, I think that has been something which our community has been teasing a lot, saying that SpaceX should start baselining with their vendors. So, Mark, you've been awfully quiet today. I mean, what do you think about the whole discussion, and where is this going? And if you have any questions for Shailendra.
No, I mean it's actually, of course, you're catching me at very early morning,
Oh
so
yeah, I
out
know.
in the eastern U.S. And stuff, and I'm
Yeah,
not a morning person by any chance of the imagination. So no, and I think it's excellent to where to Schlender's point, to where you have these large process environments that
yeah,
it's a significant part of the of an organization's operational cost, just managing and reconciling and basically affecting these large bodies of data. And you know so much of the solution approach contemplates that you're going to displace no small part of the existing IT architecture, and creates another whole nother avenue that you have to account for, because then you go into vendor selection, and what are the specifications you're going to need for whatever type of hardware that you're going to install. With baseline, it bypasses all of that. You're using your existing systems, and this is a way of showing that you are in a constant state of synchronization with all of your counterparties, and you can um, kind of replicate certain process environments like this now, but a lot of these are batch updated, sometimes nightly, sometimes every 48 hours, just depending on the update cycle. And having that real time data is, of course, really compelling. Instead of waiting, tomorrow to see if your data is correct, would you like to know right now? So it's
yeah,
really a compelling use for baseline. But baseline also, just by setting it up and stuff, also includes a lot of the plumbing, so that you can then introduce extra features and functionality. When it comes to tokenization, and when it comes to digital identity. Um, you know, Identity has really gotten a lot of attention, especially right now within the online marketplaces, because you don't have these abandoned online shopping carts. A lot of people will do some shopping, and then you go to check out. Well, then the system wants you to log in again. And people are like, I don't remember my password. I don't know. And you know what? I'm just not going to buy anything, and then they just close the window tab or something like that. That's an
mm,
abandoned online shopping cart, which creates a of course lost sale, but also an inventory challenge, because if you're going to you know go through purchasing something in an online marketplace in your shopping cart, they're going to allocate that they have something there to sell to you. And if you abandon the
yeah,
shopping cart, well, we don't quite know. So again, you have an inventory component to that. um, no, I mean, right now it's one of those where we're almost like at the dawn, but we're starting to really, those of us that work, within the outreach and the enablement team, you really have to start doing a lot of listening to see, what is the general consensus? What type of assumptions are people making? And
yeah,
one of the big assumptions that I, have been encountering quite a bit is there's this reflexive, um, uh, just tendency whenever you're going to do some type of new process or any type of transformation, no matter how small, is that you assume that, oh, we're going to have to uh, really dig deep with this. We're going to need to, again, displace certain parts of the IT architecture. And that's just the thinking. And we have to really get ahead of that to say, no, you already have what you need. This is a technique, this is a set of tools and libraries
Yeah,
to allow that you can synchronize with your counterparts.
absolutely.
So,
And it's all open source.
and people are like, this is too easy. And we're like, it's by design. So, and yeah, the biggest thing is that data reconciliation, which is around 40% of your operational costs. Um, just trying to get the back and forth to make sure that there's out of sync data, and you're going to have certain industries that have very very robust data privacy requirements, so where people
Yeah,
cannot share data. Healthcare, of course, is the big one on there. And, you know, as far as, trying to get everybody synced up, if an invoice matches a bill, there can be, going back and forth several passes until whatever document you have in front of you is finally you are matched up with your counterparty. Um, and it's one of those, like, they have to be so stringent as far as safeguarding that data, just because of the compliance aspect. So, baseline, allows through zero knowledge that you preserve all of the tenets of the data privacy framework, and you can then go ahead and start realizing real value, um, knowing that the data is synced up.
yeah. So Shalinder, from your practical experience, the Mark great points actually, and just sort of building upon what Mark just finished off. Shalinder, have you within your organization, present or past, anytime carried out any reviews on what are your costs for managing out of sync data or doing reconciliations which could be eliminated, stuff like that?
We have, excuse me, yeah. So that's where I keep going back to the master data, and that's where companies implement master
Hmm.
data. That's where we are implementing master data.
Right.
So the cost of bad data is huge, and not just bad data, but then sometimes we have to also manage the master data for the end consumer. So what we work with a lot of resellers, dealers, but then there's a consumer who's buying our products and using in their vehicles, right?
Hmm.
And managing that actual consumer and the data of that consumer, it's a big task. When people fill in this data, many a times they don't understand that how this data will be used. So they just fill in this data for the purpose of completing a form.
Yeah.
Last year when we did the data cleaning and when we looked at the data at some places, the pin codes are just 5 times 9. The mobile numbers are the pin codes, and so there are so many ways people can think of
Yeah.
innovative ways, even if you put checks and balances. But then until unless you don't have a good master data system or an API system, people will always
Right.
way to bypass. And then what happens that even if you put these checks and balances on a home system, many a times you go to the small vendors or some other companies who can do an easy job for you to collect this data. The market research agencies, if you talk about,
Right.
okay. So they will create their own product categories, their own product names, and when it comes to us, for us to analyze this data is huge.
Hmm.
In fact, I clearly recall in my early years we were working with the logistics and warehousing. So
Mm-hmm.
a company transferred their existing warehouses, and there was no system; it was all Excel based. Now in Excel, it's a beautiful system because it gives you 100% freedom, so you can do whatever you
Hmm.
want. There are no checks and
Yeah.
balances, no rules, nothing. So when we took on the system and then we entered, and then later on when we reconciled the whole inventory, there was a shortage of many CRs, many crores, and this is back in the year 2000.
Tens, tens of millions of rupees.
Tens of millions of rupees back in 2000. You can imagine,
Yeah.
and it became a huge escalation. Where is the inventory? Where is the money? I mean, guys, you have the ownership. And then we spent a month with the client, only in cleaning the master data. That's all we did. So if a part number is there, sometimes the same part number ends with equal to sign, sometimes it ends with slash, sometimes it ends with minus, depending
I
on how
see.
the data entry person has interpreted that particular thing. If
Yeah.
system says you have to enter 11 character, the 11th character I can't interpret, let's put something else, but let's do that.
Okay.
So that's the cost of the master data. We were at the verge of losing the business just because, guys, you have done something with my inventory and it's a costly inventory, you see.
Okay.
So, and today, if you talk about, if you're, I mean, I'm a customer, as I gave you the example of a bank. I'm not happy with the bank, guys. Where is something that I asked a week back?
Yeah.
And so many examples. I
Yeah.
gave my car to the servicing company, and then
Yeah.
uh, they have not updated my address. So when they sent me the bill, I said, guys, don't send the car to my old address. You have to send to the new address. And they said, sir, now the servicing is done. We can update the address only when we open a job card. I said, very interesting. Where is the
Okay.
master data?
Okay.
Right. So again, I was very happy with the service, but this one thing puts me off.
Right.
That guys,
Right.
tomorrow, if at 5 p.m. you send me a car, you send my car to somewhere else to my old address, which is in Delhi
Yeah.
and now in Gurgaon. So I
Yeah.
am delayed by one day getting my car, right?
Right.
And these
Right.
are small examples. When you talk about at a larger level to the companies, the cost of bad data is huge. It's huge, especially when it comes to serving a consumer warranty
Sure.
claims. If you don't have your
Hmm.
master data right, getting a warranty claim to the customer becomes a nightmare for the customer, not for you.
Right.
You will keep rejecting it because you don't have it when he purchased. What is the warranty time? And it can be huge if you don't have your master data right.
Hmm. Interesting. Can you dig a little deeper on the warranty claim use case? What really goes wrong?
Many cases, you see, when it comes to the warranty claims, if you have a product installed in your home, it doesn't go through wear and tear. But imagine a tire going through wear
Hmm.
and tear. This is something in your car which goes through a hell lot of a thing, everything on the road,
There's
right?
literally a saying which says when rubber hits the road. Yeah. So
Exactly.
it hits the road all the time. Yeah.
So managing a primary, serial number on the tire, it's a tough job.
Right.
Companies have done a lot
Right.
of research on this, and a lot of companies are coming with innovative ways. So if the serial number is gone, and especially if you talk about the commercial vehicles, the trucks where they are, the tire can rip, or so if the serial number is gone, there is no way that you can process a warranty claim. So how do you do
Hmm.
in these cases?
Right.
This is just one example, and then a a tire can also exchange hands. I purchased it, I resold it, and then I have 400 trucks. Maybe I used it, I installed it in one truck, I change it to the other. Is it front
Hmm.
or rear? So that managing that whole chain from the front end itself is a Hercules task.
Hmm.
And then
Interesting.
if you talk about selling these products in the US market, the requirements are very stringent. They want to know each and everything, that in case anything goes wrong, who's responsible, the consumer or you? If you are responsible, then what went wrong? Was it a manufacturing defect? Was it wear and tear? And
Right.
companies take it very seriously to enter into the US market, and it goes back to the supply chain. Which plant it was manufactured, what time it was manufactured, what
Right.
material was used, what were the conditions to improve the product quality. So it's not only
Hmm.
the buck stops at warranty claim. It goes into
Right.
the whole R&D department for the root cause analysis.
Hmm, interesting. And I think the same kind of checks and balances could also be, baked into systems which are taking care of the entire supply chain. While the tire in this particular example is moving across the supply chain. So, for example, there's a recall. I don't know, recall in that particular batch, and the company realizes that tires need to be pulled back, or there was some incident with uh, a similar tire, and they now realize that needs to be fixed, something like that. So then, at each stage, if we are I'm just hypothetically saying, if at each stage we are able to synchronize the validity or the legitimacy of that product which is carrying out, which is passing my supply chain, I could save a lot of cost. I could save a lot of cost in forward as well as reverse logistics, right?
Yeah, cost is one thing. See, when I look at things like baseline or such cases,
Hmm.
why we do these things? The whole thing of business and the whole globe works on only one concept: trust. Okay,
Yeah.
there are so many systems across the globe. When you open a bank account, there are hundreds of banks. You choose one bank, you trust, you establish a trust in that bank,
Yeah.
right? Similarly, when you talk about these kind of warranty claims, money is one part. The whole point is you have to establish a trust with the customer that, guys, we are listening, we are taking care
Right.
of it, we are taking it seriously, and we don't want this to be repeated,
Absolutely.
right? So that is the whole thing. Cost part, fine, companies can take. There have been so many recalls. If you talk about the recalls on the steerings, the recalls on the airbags,
Right.
the recalls on, so many things have happened. So battery, if you talk about the whole phone recall, I of course don't want to name the brand, but then there are so many recalls which we have seen.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole point is, can you do it right? And that trust factor is something where you go back and do the root cause analysis. What went wrong? Who did it? Who tested it? Who certified it?
Right. Right.
And that's where immutable transactions are the only way to solve that problem.
Awesome, awesome. So, Shailendra, very strong point to close today's show, which is baselining can help you establish trust and maintain trust with your customers. I think that's a pitch which I would like to give to a lot of the SaaS company founders, which potentially should be watching my show. So, thank you so much, Shailendra, for those amazing points and your time for today's show. And thank you so much, Mark, once again for waking up so early in the morning and making it to today's show. Guys, any final comments before we sign off?
Watch the space. I mean, this is going to be an incredible year for baselining.
Awesome. Thank you all the viewers who tuned in today and all of you who are watching it at some point in time. Do like and subscribe to this channel and do follow us on Twitter. And once again, go to baseline-protocol.org for all our information about baselining and get started. 2022 is the year when baseline goes into production. Thank you so much, everybody. Cheers.
Thanks.